It's kind of cloudy and windy here today, which I like. I like the clouds. I'm not a fan of wind. Um, so it's very cool out, and I don't know how long I'm going to be out here. And it's making my wind chimes clatter. But I also, what I did today was I cleaned out our fireplace. And I realized, oh, well, let me just go ahead and show a little concoction that I'm making. I did this in the past with some tomato plants, and I saw it on a YouTube video. And I don't have my glove on. And I should have a glove on. Hold on one sec. I'm suited up, and I stuck my finger on the lens. But I have a little compost crock in our kitchen. And look at how many times I've made coffee. These are all coffee filters. These all I'm actually going to put back into my compost bin because these are the natural kind. They're the unbleached, and they do decompose. So I'm going to put these back. But I brought up a bucket because I had cleaned out the fireplace of ashes this last time. I do it every time, and then I put the ashes in the compost bin. And what I did was I filled up my compost with just coffee grounds and eggshells. I honestly don't remember why the coffee grounds are good. I know that people like to get them at Starbucks. Starbucks used to, I don't see it anymore, give away their coffee grounds so that gardeners can use it in their garden. I don't remember what the component is, and if I do, I'll stick it into the video or below the video on what it is that helps the ground when you add grounds of coffee to it, what happens to the soil. But the eggshells, what I'm just doing, and I suppose I could put it in a food processor or blender, is I throw that in, and that's the calcium. That part I know. That's added to the soil. And whoa, that was a real egg with a real egg yolk. Okay, works for me. And I don't know how it got in there. Might have been one of the cracked ones. So I'm taking the coffee grounds, and there's a helicopter going over my head. Oops. Alright. That happens in the industry. I remember being on set of The Middle, and they have the Burbank Airport nearby, and they were always flying over. But I'm crushing up the eggshells inside with the coffee grounds and some ash. Now, I think it's because it's potash that helps the soil as far as ash. And as far as the amount, I'm not measuring. I know that there's a lot of people out there on YouTube, and they have a variety of recipe ingredients. Like, this is charcoal, but it's still good for the soil. You know how they say, like, forest fires are okay, or wildfires, except for the fact that it endangers people's lives. It actually creates, and I've watched it out here in California. There's a lot of wildfires, and the grass actually comes up greener the next year. So wildfires or brush fires or whatever, it actually can be good for the soil. So I'm guessing it's because of the charcoal and ashes and so forth that goes into it. But with this recipe, I have the coffee grounds, which again I'm going to look up exactly the reasoning why, and some ash for potash, and then I'm going to add Epsom salt, and I get this Epsom salt from the dollar store, so I'm going to throw some of that in. And all I'm going to do, though, is basically when I put a tomato plant in the ground, I'm going to add this. So it's just going to be a supplemental vitamin additive. It's kind of like a smoothie for the plants, but of course it's a dry ingredient. And actually I have a banana in here. Did I mention that? Bananas have potassium. If you were to plant banana peels around your roses, Martha Stewart used to do this, and she had a gardener friend tell her this, an expert, that the potassium helps roses to grow. I always remember that. I even remember the episode very vividly. So I'm just making a smoothie without water and liquid. I'm just making a mix. And it's about all these ingredients. And so what I'll do is I'll take a plant and go to one of my beds and make a hole, and then I'll go ahead and add a fistful of this to each one of them. I actually have 12 tomato plants down below waiting for me, but I wanted to do this first because the bucket was heavy and I needed to bring it up here, because I am also going to plant jalapenos. Finally, Green Thumb Green Arrow has jalapenos, so I'm going to put 6 of them in here. This bed already has a mixture of different things in it that I put in a while ago. It has the soil, and then I put steer manure, and it's actually been sitting and aging for probably about 2 months. What I am going to do is I have something called Amend. It's Organic Plus, and when I plant my jalapenos, I'm also going to add the Organic Plus Amend, and I'll show it to you. This is like my last half bag of chicken manure. Chicken manure, when it decomposes, it's not as hot as steer manure is. But this is the Amend. I hope you can read it. It's by Kellogg's. And it's going to make, it looks like it has more, like wood, almost like wood chipping in it, so that it fluffs up the soil better. A lot of my gardening has just been by feel, like feel in my soul. This is what a plant needs. And if I listen to my intuition, I've been pretty good about successes. It's when I start to get a little too anal and a little too detailed, then I kind of seem to mess things up. I did plant onions in here. I can't remember if I mentioned it in my video. I have brown and white and red, and excuse me if I'm repeating myself. I don't watch my videos afterward. I haven't yet learned how to do that. Atticus is doing it for me. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plant my peppers right now, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do when I plant my tomatoes. Okay? And I have a dirty finger and I have to shut this off. I hope it was going. It is. Oh, and I forgot to mention that by adding the Epsom salt, on the package it says, a soaking aid for minor sprains and bruises, nourishes sore muscles, uses a saline laxative, great for plant gardening, use as a plant nutrient. And the nutrient that it provides is magnesium. Yep, magnesium sulfate. So whenever you look at fertilizers, there's usually 3 numbers on it, and it'll be, and I don't know the order of it, but it'll be potassium or potash, magnesium. I think there's some that, it just demonstrates that I garden by instinct more than actual like scientific knowledge. And but there's 3 numbers, and it's a formula, and certain plants require more of a certain nutrient than others. but I do know that it's important for tomatoes to have the 3 ingredients of calcium, magnesium, and potassium. So again, I'll take a peek at what it is that Ash does, and hopefully I've put it in the video, if not below the video. Okay, so let's see. Yes, it's running. It's rolling. These are my towers that I said that I like to use, and I know that there's a lot of people on YouTube that use other things. I did well with these, and this was the first time I ever used this type of trellising before. Before, I was raised with using these cages, and then when we moved out here, there's a horrible rodent problem, so cages down in my other garden are essential. And it is a bummer because it is hard to get the tomatoes off the vine when they're inside of a cage that you have to lift up. But I'm moving aside the straw in this bed, and in this bed I have compost and fertilizer and soil. Fertilizer is steer manure, and again, it's been aging for about a month now, I believe, if not longer. And that green arrow, green thumb, I have a 6-pack of Beef Master, which I'm hoping is going to be one of those amazing slicing tomatoes for tomato sandwiches. You know what I'm talking about, the kind with white bread or some thick bread with lots of mayo and salt and pepper, and it's delicious and it has flavor, just so you know. And then I want Roma because it's a really good canning tomato for me. These look funky, and this was the best pack that I could find at the time. The nursery is bringing in at weird times their deliveries, and all of them look stunted like this. And I'm not really happy because at my good old 99-cent store, they don't seem to be bringing in any tomato plants, which is frustrating, that I actually wanted to use instead. But I'm so anxious to get going on planting the tomatoes that I went ahead, and these are $3.99 and you get 6. So actually I'm getting 2 additional ones instead of 99 cents a piece. But at 99-cent store, the tomatoes are a good 4 or 5 inches tall. So they're taller than these. But I want to go back to where I was starting the trellis for the Beef Masters. All I'm going to do, and I should probably have my tripod, and I thought about it, and then I completely forgot about it when I walked back up here. And it is a trek for me. We have lots of big rocks, and they go in the rock pile on the other side of the fence, because that whole wall right there is solid granite. And then this is topsoil, I guess, when the houses were built. The builder brought soil here or just moved it around with their big machines. So anyway, I'm loosening this soil. Did you know that there's a method that I never heard about before? There's all these trendy things that happen in gardening, and the thing is I think gardening is just so incredibly forgiving in many ways that it would have to look like that to be pretty challenging to grow something, although if you notice, things still manage to pop up. But what I'm getting at is I learned about different methods. My thinking, my philosophy, my theory is to try to duplicate a forest. And I actually found a guy on YouTube. He was a Vietnam vet, and he had the Agent Orange, or that gas, I think the kind that you saw in Platoon, He breathed that in and it caused neurological damage, but he was still able to do a whole bunch of gardening, struggling along, but he did it out of sheer will and desire and love for gardening. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'll be honest. Again, I'm always in pain. I'll never recover. I have a genetic condition that is with me forever. And as I get older, it doesn't get better, and new issues arrive. I am working with some doctors that I hope will reduce the kind of like it's kind of debilitating as you get older. With your spine and your joints, and especially women who's prone to the menopausal stuff with bones and getting osteoporosis. Well, on top of that, I have osteogenesis imperfecta. So it's giving me scoliosis. It's giving me more fractures. But I have these doctors now that are using a variety of things, from therapies to infusion treatments, that will hopefully either stave off it getting worse, or hopefully maybe I'll get better. I mean, and that is what happened with Atticus. He got better. I'll never get younger. I think I mentioned that before. I'll never get younger, but I don't want to be not able to plant and garden and take care of my wonderful, beautiful pets and raise chickens. And I know at some point I'm not going to be able to, but in the meanwhile, I want to try and do the best that I can. So, off of the medical subject onto a tomato subject, I have that little concoction of the coffee grounds, the ashes from the fireplace, the Epsom salt, and there's a few banana peels in there to throw in for potassium. And what else? Coffee grounds, eggs. Yeah, you're probably tired of hearing about it. So let me get a nice handful of this good old stuff. And by the way, it smells great. It smells very earthy. I like it. I like the smell of fertilizer. Isn't that the weirdest thing? I really, really do. We used to live in San Fernando Valley, and down the street from us, my mom would get milk from Manfield's Dairy. And she used to let us feed the cows every now and then. And the Manfield's Dairy let us. You know, there was a time when people respected other people's property, and it was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. No problem, because they knew that we weren't going to do anything to cause harm. I have a lot of stories to tell from my life. It's really amazing, and it seems like as I get older, I reminisce a whole lot more. And sometimes it's sad, and sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it helps remind me of reminiscing with other people, so that maybe, just maybe, it'll inspire somebody else to go, you know what, the old ways, there's something more of depth. There's something more, you know, it's so hard for me to figure out the words. I used to hear these older people, because I was raised by older people, about the good old days. And I know that there was bad in the good old days, but there were some things that was just so different, like clean air and food that has real taste to it, that people today don't even know, and sadly also don't even seem to care. And I'm probably going to touch on that quite a bit, because I went ahead and I made the decision that me vlogging is for me. It's helping me. I'm not very good at it. In fact, after I shut off the phone, the camera phone, I dwell on what I say, and I want to make sure that I say the right thing, and I want to be able to say the right thing in the sense that it touches the heart, and it touches the spirit, and it touches the mind, to think or feel something that might have been lost in these past decades. So I'm gonna go ahead and reminisce. This isn't about my grandchildren. It might be for my future grandchildren with Atticus. It might, but I want it to be for anybody that. That's my buzzer. Shh. Anybody that is wondering, wow, is this all there is in life? Like being on the phone. I love YouTube videos because the stuff on television, and I like television. I used to love television when I was a kid. We'd get the TV guide and we'd circle all the programs that we wanted to watch during the evening. But what's on now is not what we're supposed to be watching. It's not right for anybody to behave in those ways. It's not right to encourage or highlight violence and criminal activity and a variety of other things that are clearly not what God intended. And there's Lucy. She's with me. And it takes effort for her. She's 15 years old to climb up here. But she wanted to come up with me. All right, so, but I'm going to reminisce quite a bit, and I think that's going to be part of my vlogging, is going to be about, I want to restore a sense of good old days. There's this thing that's out now, and I'm going to view around. There's something out now that Atticus told me, and I heard it on the radio, and I said, Atticus, what is that? Because the radio announcer said, oh, we're in our new normal. And that made no sense. There's no logic to that whatsoever. A new normal. I asked Atticus, what does that mean? And he said, Mom, we had to go around with COVID wearing masks, and that became the new normal. And now they're lightening up on it, and it's become the new normal. And my thing is there's nothing normal about it at all. It's not a new normal. I'll say that 3 times. It's not a new normal. It's not a new normal. And it's not an old normal. I mean, even with the plague, right? There is nothing normal about any of this. And so I want to hopefully instill, and she's digging in my potato plants. I want to hopefully instill, Lucy, no. A sense of what normal is supposed to be in a healthy, God-given way. As much as we can on earth, it'll never be God's way, but as much as we can to restore some of the things like courtesy or healthier living, which back then we didn't realize how much healthier we were as opposed to now, and just a variety of things that I want to include in my vlogging. And it's going to be a lot of reminiscing, because the sad thing is when you're living in it and you don't know that it's going to change so drastically, you go, what happened? And it used to be like this, and it disappeared, and what replaced it isn't any better. So I want to go ahead and replace it with what was once a better way of living, and share it with you, because I've always made my little Teletubby land. I've always tried to make it into a Tasha Tudor world. I've always tried to make it into Like when I was a child, my Barbie dolls were not fashion forward. They actually would go ahead and build cabins in the woods and make fish hooks out of sticks. So it's just I want to have a different way, just a different way to offer to anyone who might be interested. Read books like Little House on the Prairie. Read books like Farmer Boy and Strawberry Girl. Have your children read. That's another thing. Get them off those video things and phones, and have them get dirty and smell the earth and taste clean water, and teach them how to respect our planet and not trash it and not throw garbage all over and as if, you know, it's somebody else's responsibility. Teach responsibility and teach pride in the sense of not so much self-pride, but pride that you have the respect of where you live and the people around you. That's what's really important. So finally, the tomato is nearing the ground, okay? So I'm putting it in the middle. I have all my little amendments in there. There's another amendment I wanted to tell you about that nobody seems to talk about, and that was what helped me in the past when I was a gardener. And mind you, I've been a gardener since I was about 8 or 9 years old. I may not have the math, I may not be able to articulate it, and like I said, I dwell on what it is that I say, and I'm going, wow, I really should have taught that differently. I'm not used to speaking because I've been on a closed set for 10 to 12 years with Atticus where you weren't allowed to talk, and I wanted to be in the background because it was about Atticus and Atticus's job, it wasn't about me, and that's not a problem. I don't want it to be about me. It's just I didn't get much opportunity to demonstrate to people who I really was. And quite frankly, in Hollywood, not everybody is interested in raising chickens and getting their hands dirty. So I've planted this tomato just like that, magically. And then what I learned, because I have had problems in the past, there's something called blight. And I've had tomatoes get it quite frequently. And it messes up your gardening area terribly because it's a spores thing, very sci-fi kind of existence that comes about. But what I discovered is that when the leaves get wet and they touch the ground like that, then whatever's in the ground has spores that gets into the leaves and then causes the plant to turn yellow, and then ultimately die. And I'll go ahead and I'm very stubborn, and I pull off the dead leaves, and a lot of times I save some of my tomatoes that way. But in the end, they succumb to blight, and it's hard to get it out of the soil once you have it, and you can't. And you got to make sure you throw away the leaves and so forth and so on. So what I do now and what I've learned is that you pinch off the lower leaves, and this kills me because I feel like it takes away from the plant in an ugly way, but it's actually a healthy thing because in the end it will grow better and it won't succumb to disease, which is really the main important thing. So one of the things that if I forget to come up with it, because it is hard for me to walk up and down a hill of an acre hill, it's a vitamin B. I'm not sure if it's like a B number or it's a vitamin B that helps reduce plant shock. So when you're transplanting or taking these out of the containers and transplanting and putting them into the ground, it helps reduce the shock So, and vitamin B is good for us for our nervous system as well. So, I never see it on YouTube. They never talk about using vitamin B. It's kind of a fishy smelling liquid that I get. I want to make sure that the straw also doesn't touch the leaves. And then it surprises me that I never hear the gardeners talk about vitamin B. But everybody used it way back when to help reduce plant shock. And I even remember going into the nursery once when I finally ran out of it, because you get it in these big gallon bottles. And they were surprised that anybody was asking for it. But that was me. I asked for it because that's what I used, and it really, really helps with plant shock. So, the first Beef Master, I have 5 more to go. I have 3 in each box, so there's 6 total. And then I have 6 of the Romas, and this is Lucy's head. She's wanting to go back home, is what she wants. So I need to hurry up and plant these tomatoes. Thank you for listening and watching.